everyone, it's me, Sin Munoz. Welcome to Lowkey Unhinged podcast, a personal guide to all things pop culture. I'm catching up with you every week on our favorite shows and hot takes with some of our favorite unhinged people. Tune in every week wherever you stream your podcast and follow Lowkey Unhinged on all social platforms. See you next time. Ciao. Hey everyone, welcome back to Lowkey Unhinged. We are on episode 3 of Happily Ever After. They kicked the episode off with Tigerlily and Adnan. They're examining the cabin. Adnan is expressing how much he loves it, which again, pretty shocking, but he loves it. He's so excited. And they're looking forward to moving in. So because the cabin is not finished yet, they are living out of a hotel, which sounds not great. But, you know, we see them in their luxurious lifestyle when they were in Adnan's home country getting married. So I kind of imagine that it would be something similar. Ritz-Carlton, something of that caliber. But no, it appears to be a pretty basic hotel. And they go to check in. Upon checking in, Adnan makes a comment that he really misses his home country. And why can't he be there? He has about 1 million people to assist him, and he wouldn't have to carry the suitcases by himself, which I thought was kind of strange. Why wouldn't you be able to park at the valet and do that now? Well, either way, he has to carry everything, including Tigerlily, up to the room. They get up to the room, and he asks her what type of tornado had hit the inside, which he was not wrong. There was stuff everywhere. There was confetti all over the floor. There was food all over. It was quite chaotic, quite messy, and just kind of strange that Tigerlily had allowed the place to be in that condition for Adnan to arrive to. She mentions that she doesn't think that Adnan really understands what it's like to have a household with children and that things just get kind of messy. Well, that is very true and very reasonable, but what happened to the house cleaning? This is a hotel. There's housekeeping involved. And so kind of weird, but nonetheless, she's kind of laughing it off because he's pretty much in shock. He's not happy about it. Yeah, so he expresses that to her. So we'll kind of see where things go with that. Later in the episode, Adnan's brother is actually now living in Texas. So Adnan had announced that once he had decided to live in Texas, that his brother had actually made the decision to move from a different state to Texas so that they can be together, which I thought was very sweet, very nice. I'm glad that he's going to have some family around. That must be extremely difficult for any of these couples to leave their families in another country, be so far away from their own culture, and be completely alone. So I thought it was actually very sweet that his brother was going to be living in Texas nearby. They decide to meet up at a golf course. Tigerlily sets this up. It's a very posh golf course, very high-end looking club. Everyone's dressed very nicely for this event. So I thought, okay, this is pretty cute. They're going to go golfing. It's going to be a really nice moment for all of them. Well, no. The guys are a couple of doofuses. They have no idea what they're doing. Adnan is dressed in very fancy shoes, completely unprepared for the golf course. It's squishy, it's muddy. So they're kind of a hot mess. I guess I'm not really surprised, but I really would have assumed that they kind of had a better judgment over the situation and would have known better of what they are getting themselves into, but they don't. So there's that. Later on, we see Darcey. Darcey is again with Georgi's friend's wife. They're at a shopping store, and this friend is actually super sweet. She seems very helpful. She really is trying to give Darcey support and an honest opinion on what is going to be best for Bulgaria. So Darcey's trying on a couple different things. It's so over the top. It's gemstones and rhinestones and just flashy sequences all over the place. And it does look quite a bit ridiculous. And I imagine that people probably don't really dress like that in Bulgaria. I wouldn't really know, but I could understand how that's not really the norm. And so she's very honest with her and lets her know, sweetie, this is more for Beverly Hills and less for Bulgaria. That was pretty funny. And she wasn't wrong about the Beverly Hills comment. That made a lot more sense. So Darcey keeps trying on different outfits. She's not really getting the point, and the friend is having a hard time getting her to understand you just got to dress modest, and it's just not in Darcey's vocabulary. And the moment that the friend suggested not wearing these over-the-top 6-inch heels, Darcey just about lost it, which was really funny. And I get it. I'm also a shorty, so I totally feel her on that. You want to get some height. But at the same time, I mean, come on, these heels, they're just so insane. But it's true to Darcey and her demeanor. Later on, we see Darcey really committed to this make under. She really wants to go for this natural look. She wants to make sure that she is doing right by Georgi so that the family accepts her. Well, part of this make under is her going to the salon and getting this very dramatic, over the top make under. And that includes her eyelashes getting shortened. Yes, her eyelashes getting shortened. That is what she felt was going to be the game changer. And it wasn't eyelashes removed completely. It was just shorter. Shorter than before. And it looked essentially exactly the same. I mean, they were a little bit shorter than the last pair that she had on, and you could kind of tell, but more or less it was exactly the same thing. So it was pretty funny. It was pretty ridiculous. And unfortunately, Darcey, I really hate this about Darcey and Stacey, but they are surrounded by so many yes men, and all of her friends are sitting there gassing her up, letting her know she looks so much younger. She looks so natural. This is just so life-changing. And no, it's not. She looked essentially the same. So it was just so ridiculous. And I really hate that she's surrounded by friends that can't be honest with her. I mean, the friend in the scene before who's preparing her to go to Bulgaria was so much more upfront and honest with her, so much more genuine. And unfortunately, these friends are what we would consider some fake friends. They're really not there to help her. They're kind of just telling her what she would like to hear, which really isn't great. So later in the episode, we see Darcey is finally meeting with Georgi after she got this very elaborate make under. And she just is so excited for him to see how committed she is to really having more of a natural look. She meets with Georgi. He has no idea what has changed. He's like the rest of us. This looks essentially the same as before. I'm not really seeing anything different. And Georgi was actually very funny in this scene. So his humor is sarcastic and dry, but he makes the comment that his family is going to be so happy with these new eyelashes. They're not going to be preoccupied with the fact that her cleavage is out, that her clothes are tight, that there's gemstones all over. No, they're not going to be focused on that. They're going to be so ecstatic to see these shorter fake lashes. So that was pretty funny. He had a good joke on that one. Darcey doesn't get it. She starts to get kind of frustrated with him. He feels that she's not taking this seriously, that she's, still just dressing way over the top, really not committed to making this introduction to his family the best that it can be. So she gets frustrated, and he kind of just loses it out of nowhere and starts calling her derogatory terms and that she looks XYZ. She gets a little offended, and she's like, I'm not that. That's not fair. She's like, I'm not done getting ready. It's just kind of a hot mess. The whole thing is just unfortunate, but, Darcey really is trying to the best of her ability. It's not the most that she can do, but she really thinks that she's doing something here. And so I felt kind of bad that Georgi was so harsh on her. But as I had mentioned in the last couple episodes, Georgi is just kind of being a bit harsher on her than I think before. Or maybe he was always this harsh and I just didn't really see it that way. But yeah, he's harsh nonetheless, which I don't love that. We see Gino and Jasmine in this episode and a little bit of Matt. No more Natalie. Natalie is back in Vegas. So we see Gino. He meets up with his cousin and he's letting his cousin know that, he's spent some time with Natalie in Vegas. He's so excited. They had this amazing quote unquote spark, this amazing kiss. Ugh, gross. The whole thing's weird, but his cousin's trying to be supportive of it. And Gino has mentioned that once he let his cousin Dana know that he was going to be in the open marriage, that although he was hesitant towards it, he was supportive towards Gino, and Gino really appreciated that. So they continue on with that conversation as they're grilling the cheeseburgers, which, by the way, looked so delicious. Definitely made me hungry. That leads to the conversation that Gino later has in stating that he had done some investigation of his own and he had tracked down Jasmine's phone bills. And in these phone bills, he saw that she was spending a lot of time talking with Matt and that this was ahead of the agreement that they had both decided that the open marriage was going to be on the table. Because of this, Gino has determined that she has been cheating on him. So he felt betrayed by her. He felt like that was just the last straw. And being that Natalie wants him to be open with Jasmine, that he is dating her, Gino decides that he is going to end their marriage, and that was just kind of the camel's back situation. So we'll get back to that in a little bit, but that's kind of where Gino's at. Next, we have Loren and Alexei. So Loren meets with her friend Noga. They have this conversation. They talk about the altercation. Noga expresses her embarrassment. She felt sorry for how she had acted. They kind of discuss how Noga had never done anything like that before. Well, it's kind of hard to imagine that the first time she has this explosive reaction to anything is going to be on camera, but apparently that's kind of where she's leaning on that's just not really her. Later from there, Loren, Yara, Libby, they all decide they're going to have a girls' night. This was pre-planned. So in order to have the girls' night, everyone's going to be meeting at Loren's house again. It was actually very cute, I thought. The girls were going to have their night out, and the guys were going to stay at home and watch the kids. Seemed innocent enough, seemed sweet. I thought that was very cute. And the women are dressed to the nines, minus Loren. I'm not really sure why, but she was pretty underdressed for the occasion. Yara was a little bit overdressed, but, I guess that's Yara. They decide they're going to go out. The guys are at home. They're going to hang out with the kids. And pretty shortly after, you hear one of Loren's children crying. And so they're kind of figuring out what happened. Why is he crying? Well, lo and behold, little Winston, Andre's son, has bit him. Okay, that happens. Unfortunate, but it happens. So Andre does his best to kind of let Winston know he shouldn't be doing that and kind of console Loren's child. And I thought that was kind of sweet. He's still just kind of a strong personality, but he's doing his best, right? Then they move on. They continue their conversations. Boom. Next child down. Another child of Loren's is now bit by Winston. So he has to go diffuse that situation. He goes and scolds Winston, and it was hilarious. Not only did Andre cause such a dramatic scene the night before, but now his children are taking Loren's children out one by one. So that was very funny. It was ironic, but I mean, at the same time, are we surprised? Not really. We all know how aggressive Andre is, and I just think that growing up in that type of environment, that type of household, that it's really easy for these kids to pick up these types of bad behavior. Now, it was understandable had it been one child, but it really just kept going on. So that was pretty funny. Once that scene has passed, they go back to the girls. They're showing them, having this really nice conversation in their Uber while they're on their way to go out. And in that ride, they have the conversation to break the ice about what had happened the night before. Libby seems pretty upset that Loren allowed her friend, in her words, to essentially verbally attack Andre. And Loren is somewhat defending her friend, says that her friend feels super bad. Noga's very apologetic about the whole thing. Well, Libby felt like it was Loren's responsibility to prevent something like that from happening since it was her house and her friend, to which I would agree. I think that was a pretty reasonable, request of Loren. Loren kind of doesn't see it that way. Libby doesn't see it that way. And Yara actually chimes in during this conversation because, well, Loren keeps saying how aggressive Andre was and what a scene he had caused and how, upset her friend had been. And Yara stands up for Andre and says, well, I actually don't think he said anything really outrageous. Yes, he may have this personality. He's kind of known for that. But in that moment, he didn't really seem to do anything outrageous. And obviously, Loren didn't like that. But that's kind of just where the conversation ends. The girls have a pretty uneventful night. Seemed pretty boring. I really thought they were going to go to Miami, go all out, and, we would see them dancing, we would see them drinking, having a great time, but it was pretty boring. And truthfully, Yara looked super bored. I mean, here's Yara having moved to Miami, expecting this really cool lifestyle, which I don't doubt she's doing on her own or making new friends and experiencing that. But I thought that since Libby and Loren live in Florida, and they've probably been to Miami so many times that they would have showed her a really good time, but it was pretty boring. Loren was very boring. And I guess I shouldn't be surprised, but I kind of was. But nonetheless, they wrap up girls' night. Girls' night was uneventful. Nothing really exciting happened. They continued the talk about Libby going to be with Andre's family. And for some reason, Loren just really cannot stay out of it. She continues to tell Libby what a terrible idea that is and how much she shouldn't go. And I read on Reddit, in the subreddit, someone had commented and said, Loren genuinely cannot mind her own family's business. And they were right. You know, we all know, as I mentioned before, staying in your lane is really the route to go in a situation like that. And she can't. She feels that it is her responsibility to make the biggest deal about this. And we all know that's just not going to end well. Later in the scene, we see Kara and Guillermo. He brings baby Nico to Kara's mom's house. And it's so cute. Nico's so adorable. And Kara's mom is actually so sweet. So they sit down. They're having a heart-to-heart. Guillermo's letting her know about his ambitions and the issues with him becoming a pilot and how expensive it is, but how passionate he feels about that. To which Kara's mom was so sweet and kind. She was extremely supportive the entire time and had mentioned military might be an option. That way he can pursue his dreams to be a pilot. He can get great benefits for the family. And the cost of this licensing for a pilot would be significantly reduced or possibly covered by the military. And it was really sweet and it was a great idea. And you kind of just see Guillermo light up. He's so excited. I thought it was a great suggestion and he was really looking forward to talking to Kara about it. So we see he finally eventually meets up with Kara at a different scene. They take baby Nico to the park, which was so cute. As they start playing, there's a bug out of nowhere, decides to get right in their face, to which Kara says, "Get away from my family," and straight up Willow Smith the bug with her hair. Now that was very funny. I'm a California girl, so there's no way I'm whipping my hair into a bug. I am freaking out if that bug gets into my hair. As a matter of fact, I'm running if the bug gets anywhere near my hair because then I'm going to think the bug is stuck in my hair. So props to Kara. She's brave. She really defended her family with her hair. She whipped it back and forth. She got that bug out of there. So shout out to Kara for that one. Well, the conversation goes on. He brings up that he had met with her mom and her really amazing suggestion about him getting into the military. And Kara does not like that whatsoever. She immediately gets upset. She's super defensive. She is completely just shutting him down. And it was really sad because you saw that light and that spark that Guillermo had when he brought it up and that hope in his eyes completely diminished. Kara says, "That's ridiculous. I'm not uprooting my life. I'm not going to be traveling. I'm not going with you. I'm not doing this. I understand you want to better yourself and the lives of your family, and you feel that this might be the route to take to do that, but I'm not for it. I grew up as a military kid, and you don't know what that looks like." It was sad. It genuinely was so sad. I felt like she really could have taken a step back. She really could have allowed him the space to share these dreams and ambitions. And it was a conversation he had with her mom. Her mom was the one that suggested this. Now, it was just a suggestion. It was just an idea. It wasn't that Guillermo was going to be doing this. And I just think that it really shows how checked out Kara is from the situation. She is so resentful towards him. She really felt like he was so out of line to even bring it up, that he has no plan in place. And it was sad. It was just not a nice moment. And I felt like it really shut Guillermo down. And it was just really unfortunate. Well, we're going to see what happens with them. Again, as I mentioned last time, it's not looking good. It's not looking in their favor. But we go back to Jasmine. So Jasmine is now with Matt. So she's sitting in her sauna with her pink face mask. This is just so ridiculous, but she's acting very nonchalant about it. So she's talking to Matt and letting him know, Gino has reached out. Gino wants to talk with her in person. She's so hopeful that this is them moving forward in their marriage. And she lets Matt know that if Gino would like to reconcile and repair their marriage and have her move back in, that that's what she's going to do because she is the doting, loyal wife. Well, it's just so cheesy. I mean, come on, Jasmine. You're living with your boyfriend that you have been sleeping with this whole time. So for her to kind of present herself as this loyal person to Gino was pretty ridiculous, but Jasmine's ridiculous. So that's pretty much sums her up. The scene is just so contradictory. Anyways, so Gino lets her know, I want to meet up with you. It's going to be me and you. Jasmine takes him up on this. She meets up with Gino. Gino confronts her and lets her know, yes, he's been seeing Natalie, and he also lets her know about her bill that he had tracked, and he was able to see the summary of this, and he was able to see that in these statements, she had been talking to Matt long before he had agreed to the open marriage, and that they had been talking for a long period of time when they would talk. So Jasmine is very defensive, says, I don't know what you're talking about, that doesn't mean anything. And Gino just blows up on her, really tells her off, lets her know the marriage is over. At first, we see Jasmine be emotional about it, upset, kind of try to reason with him. But then we see her change her demeanor. And she becomes very shut off. And I think this was more of a tactic than it was genuine. And I felt like in that moment, she realized kind of the jig is up. Nothing she was going to say was going to stop Gino from what he had decided. And so she kind of shuts down and she tells him, I'm not going to beg for you. Well, he tells her, no problem, because I don't want to be with you anymore. Gets all of her clothing out of the car, her coffee maker. I mean, this is just like a very weird, sad, I don't know if it was staged. It kind of, I mean, the whole relationship seems fake, so it's hard to think anything is real with them. But if anything was going to be real, it may have been this scene, because Jasmine's just sitting there in the rain with her pile of clothing and her coffee maker waiting for Matt to come get her. Matt shows up like the knight in shining armor that we are perceiving Matt to be, and he comes and gets her out of there. Matt has expressed multiple times in this episode that Gino is a jerk and that Jasmine can do better than him, and he is having feelings for Jasmine, and he's just waiting for her to figure out how horrible Gino is so that they can eventually move on. So for as exciting as the last two episodes were, I would say that this episode was a little bit slower. Nothing dramatic really happened besides Winston biting the children. That was probably the most dramatic part of it. But outside of that, it was kind of just, not as exciting. But they showed the teaser for the next episode, and it looks like things may have picked up again. So thank you again for joining episode 3. See you next week for episode 4. Ciao!